boys and girls, children of all ages. This is not the main event. This is the summer sidecard. Ryan Baldwin standing on the cliff overlooking, I think, Golden Gate Bridge, if I'm not mistaken. So apparently I've entered the Bay Area. And then in the computer screen, living in technology, is Mason Shepherd.
Yes.
I think that's the same hat as 2 weeks ago. I think you're
Now, see what happened, folks, was I'm wearing I like to color coordinate. I'm wearing a shirt. It's got red and black in it and white. So I was like, dang it, have to cheat today.
Wow. Well, it's been 2 weeks since our last episode when we were kind of upset earlier in the week because we were like, man, there's not a whole lot going on. And then all of a sudden, everything exploded within the past couple of days.
Just everything dropped in. It's like gumbo. You know, when you think that you have all the ingredients and then you see your grandma or your mom just add more stuff. It's like, well, come on.
Man, if there's one thing I learned after working in a Cajun restaurant for a while, it's that everybody has a different gumbo recipe, and you will never be able to please 100% of people with your gumbo recipe, because there is the amount of times, and like this restaurant was owned by a dude from middle of nowhere, Louisiana, right? So he's like he's actually Cajun, and the number of people would come in going like, well, this isn't gumbo, this isn't how my mom made it, and I'm just like, you know what? What you got me, I guess. I don't know.
Speaking of getting got, Deshaun Watson.
You are a master of segues right now. The summer sidecard has opened up your segue game for sure. Yes, Deshaun Watson. Has already completed his hearing. It started earlier in the week and was finished after 3 days. For now up to 25 women who have levied allegations of him of sexual assault, and of course now one woman has amended her lawsuit to attack the Houston Texans for saying that they basically enabled his behavior. And in my opinion, like, if you're the NFL, you have to suspend him for the whole year at this point.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, one of the things, my dad and I talked about this, Deshaun is to blame for this, not just from, the moral side, the personal side, but from the aspect of business, in the sense of, if he would have settled these right away, this would have been over with. And everybody would be doing what they're doing now, in the sense of, you can judge him morally however you want to, but at the end of the day, he paid him off. It's done and over with in that regard. But he chose to fight it. And in turn, he's costed himself more money in doing that. And the league is going to suspend him anyway. That hasn't been levied out yet officially, but it's just one of those things where I think that do I think it's damaged his career as far as attributes? Surprisingly, no. Everybody you talk to still says Deshaun Watson is still one of the premier quarterbacks. Now, he has to back that up and prove that, because he hadn't played in going on a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. So he's going to have to prove that again. But with these type of situations with athletes, you usually have people who are like, and you know what I'm talking about. They usually kind of downplay the ability of the person who's accused. Hasn't happened for Deshaun. It's still known this guy's still a top quarterback. So I think that whenever he's able to prove that for Cleveland, we'll see how that goes. But I think as far as his legal situation, this could have been absolved a long time ago if he would have just dealt with it like he's dealing with it now. It's too late now.
Yeah, and he none of these cases ended up in a criminal trial. They were all moved to the civil. They tried to make it criminal. It was thrown out. It didn't have enough teeth behind it, I guess. So yes, as you said, he had the opportunity to get this taken care of, but chose to fight it, and now he's Mason's on the move.
Yeah, I had to check something.
But yeah, so I am the Browns already structured his contracts to backload it, where he didn't have most of his money being made in that first year,
which was smart on their end.
Yeah, because they're fully expecting him to miss at least 8 games, and now I'm thinking the whole year. It does kind of put an interesting spin on the whole Baker Mayfield situation. I don't think he'll
Yeah.
ever suit up for them again, even if they begged him
If
to.
he doesn't, he's stupid. If he doesn't, because here's the thing. You have an opportunity because his phone was not ringing whatsoever when people were like, oh, Baker Mayfield will be on the market. Phone was not ringing at all. He has a chance with Deshaun Watson potentially being out maybe the entire season again. He has a chance to prove to teams, because you're right, he's not going to stay in Cleveland. But if he doesn't suit up, he will not get a chance to show, because this last year, that didn't show teams anything. He has a chance to redo that.
Well, it's a
and if he doesn't take that,
it's a double-edged sword, though, right? Because if he goes out right now, Cleveland does not want his money on the books, and he's still kind of ambiguous enough where a team might bite on him. But if he goes out and stinks it up, like, that's it, right? No team is going to pick him up. If he goes out and does well, then yeah, some team will probably be like, you know what, he's still got something. But if he goes out and doesn't perform again, then it's even worse. Right now, there's this level of ambiguity where they're like, okay, you know, we've seen some pretty good stuff from him. Maybe we'll take a chance on him. But at that point, it's really, like I said, it's just kind of ambiguous. And really, I think it comes down to Baker just does not want to suit up for him out of a principle thing. And you know what? I don't blame him on that one.
Okay, explain that. Like, I in the sense of, I get it because he felt like he was lied to, but at the same time, man, if you got a chance to make, and I get it, it's a double-edged sword, because he could go out there if he chooses to suit up, which he probably won't, and he could get hurt, and then he'd be out of money anyway from other teams because he'd be injured, or he'd just put on another bad performance. But at the same time, this is one of those moments in pro sports. These are risks you have to take.
Yes, and I fully understand that it's a business, right? I mean, that's what most executives will say when it comes to these kind of decisions. But if you're Baker Mayfield, you got the franchise their first playoff win in God knows how long. I think it was like 20 plus years. You played all of last season, and you can argue whether this was good or bad, but he played through an injury because he wanted to play. He gave it his all. No matter what you say about Baker Mayfield's skill, you can't deny that he wanted to be out there. He was making the effort, and he would play through anything and everything, almost to a fault, to be on the field. That's the kind of mentality and diehard loyalty that a lot of people want. And then for the Browns to go after Deshaun Watson without talking to him and without including him in a trade or any kind of plans to get him out, I would be like, I gave everything to you guys. I got you your first playoff win, and then you're just going to go and basically say, well, see you later. Thanks. Bye.
I mean, the Browns, and we've talked about this before, they're not really known for being the most respectful franchise to their players, or even, I mean, the Browns struggled so long, not because they didn't have the talent. Their office couldn't get it together. You know, their office was exchanging coaches in and out, firing general managers. And what do you think that's going to do to a team when every season or every 2 seasons they're staring at a new head coach with a new system, with a new scheme? It doesn't help anybody. So, and don't get me wrong, I could understand that, the frustration of like, I gave my all to you guys. And see, and we were talking about this 2 weeks ago, but that's what we're talking about when we talk about sportscasters overstepping, in the sense of they're knocking this guy. I'm not the biggest Baker Mayfield fan in the world, but when you're knocking this guy and you're questioning his talent, but you're not referencing the fact that he's playing through an injury and he's given it all he has, and you're making it seem like he's not doing well just because he can't, that's one thing. So I can understand the frustration on that aspect. And then you've got your team kind of echoing that. But, you know, and he's always struggled with this. I would put that pride to the side and say, look, I don't really like this place anymore, because they know that. He's pretty much said that. It's not a secret. I don't really like this place anymore. I don't want to be here anymore, but I'm going to owe it to myself to have a very productive season to where I can go where I want to go and leave you all in the dust. That's just me.
Fair enough. Well, we'll have to keep an eye on it, because I assume now that the hearing is done, we'll have a decision within the next couple of weeks on whether what Deshaun Watson's suspension will be going to be, because they need to have an answer before training camp starts up in August. So I would assume within the next couple of weeks, we'll see.
Yeah.
But the other thing that started up yesterday NBA free
Oh
agency.
my.
And there were rumblings of what was going to happen before it started, but about 5 p.m. Eastern, as soon as the deadline started, which, by the way, 5 p.m. Eastern at night seems like a weird time to start free agency. I feel like you would want to start it in the morning, but
Yeah.
anyway, it absolutely exploded. So let's start with like
Folks, you have to understand. When Ryan texted me and was like, "Yeah, we talk about NBA free agency. There's some stuff going on with the Mavs." It was very casual.
Yeah.
And then after that stuff, boom, 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 JaVale McGee, Kevin Durant, all this stuff. Oh my gosh.
So let's start with the biggest of names in the NBA, right? Because Kevin Durant made it very clear that he wanted to trade after Kyrie opted into his player option for the Nets. And I can't say that I blame him because I wouldn't want to play with Kyrie either. I know he's great, but it's the Terrell Owens effect, right? Like, he's a great player, but what does he do to your locker room?
Well, in my estimation, it's because of Kyrie more of in a positive way, in the sense of because they want to play together with each other outside of Brooklyn, and I think because what Durant said, he came with a statement this morning. Durant doesn't just want to play on a team with just Ben Simmons on it. He wants Kyrie to be there. They're close like that. And I think it's less of he doesn't want to play with Kyrie. He doesn't want to play without him. But at the same time, Kevin Durant, because two of the teams that have kind of come up, not seriously, but they've just kind of come up was Phoenix. And I think the other team, I can't remember at the moment, it'll come to me. But the problem with, and it left again. But I think with Phoenix, or wherever Kevin Durant goes, the truth is Kevin Durant is like Kyrie Irving, and they want to have their definitive team. And no one can convince me different. They want to be able to say that they led a team. You can't say that with Oklahoma City because Harden was there and he had Westbrook, and then when Harden left, he had Westbrook. And yes, before them, he was the only one there, but still, they were not to a certain level that they were with those other two there. They just weren't. Then he left. Then he went to Golden State to finally win some championship. There's nothing wrong with that. But he was not the leader, and he would get upset when people would say Steph is the leader. He is the face of this team. He wanted that to be him. So then he goes to Brooklyn, and he knows Kyrie's going to be there, and he's like, oh, okay, finally, I could have my shot. Hasn't really moved the needle. And so now he's frustrated with the Nets organization. He's frustrated with himself. He's frustrated with all that. And then one of his close friends is like, yeah, man, I'm only signing on for a year. And Durant has 4 more left. So it's like, yeah, I don't want to be here anymore. Kevin Durant to me is a very impulsive, sporadic guy. He always does things, and you and I both know, says things on the heat of the moment, doesn't really think about them. And I think that's the problem. Am I saying leaving the Nets is a problem for him? Not necessarily. He could do very well outside of that organization because it's Kevin Durant. But at the same time, the motivation behind it is kind of what's, you could say, classic KD. You know what I mean?
Yep. And there are a number of teams chasing after him, including the Dallas Mavericks, who reports have surfaced that they have a package including the rookie that they just drafted, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Spencer Dinwiddie, as well as I think another first-round pick to try and snag him. I'm going to be honest here.
Okay.
I don't think Kevin Durant fits in the Mavericks offense very well because if you look at it, it would basically be like getting Brunson back, right? I mean, but better. But in terms of play style, he wants the ball, he wants the touches, and he is a dribble drive kind of step back guy. I don't want both Luka and Kevin Durant on the floor at the same time because the Mavs offense, as we saw in the playoffs with Luka on the floor, is Luka is the ball handler. He's going to slash, and he's either going to put up a ridiculous shot, a step back 3, or he's going to dish it out. I would rather just go get a sharpshooter. I would rather go, if we're going to trade for that, I'd rather go get like a Tyler Hero from Miami and just have another shooter around Luka. Because when you saw in the playoffs when it was Luka and Jalen Brunson on the floor at the same time. They fulfilled the same role. And when one of them didn't have the ball, they just stood around.
Yeah.
Like when Brunson had the ball, Luka was just standing there. And I'm like, I don't want to give. I would rather have Hardaway because he fits better in our offense. He's a 3-point sniper. And when you dribble and drive, he's another person to dig out. I would rather have Dinwiddie and Hardaway than Durant, at least in the Mavericks' current scheme.
Tell me why I knew you would say that. I know Ryan.
Because we've been doing this a while now.
Yeah. I love me some Ryan Baldwin, special place in my heart. I think what it is, I mean, you're not wrong. And see, that was the thing.
And like, I'm not saying if we didn't get Durant, I wouldn't be excited, because when was the last time? I mean, before Luka, when was the last time we had a player of Kevin Durant's talent in Dallas? Because I love Dirk, but in terms of overall talent and ability, I'd put Kevin Durant a little bit above Dirk Nowitzki. So we haven't had somebody like this in Dallas since before Luka. So I'm not saying I wouldn't be excited, but I'd also say, look, this does not automatically make us the top team in the West.
Oh, no, not even close. And I think it was Miami. And that's the point I was getting to when I was talking to my dad about it. And we were discussing, the Miami, because the Miami Heat has expressed interest along with Phoenix. And those are the main two. The reason why teams like the Heat and the Suns would be the problem for Kevin is the exact reasons you just mentioned, in the sense of he would have to get along with playing with Jimmy Butler. And we both know that Jimmy Butler, if he doesn't get his way, starts fighting his own team, gets in his own way, and Durant is super sensitive and erratic, those two don't mix. That would be a locker room disaster. And then with Phoenix, that's Chris Paul's team. But even then, Durant would have to deal with Devin Booker. Devin Booker, and I've heard people say this, and it's true, he's like Kobe. Devin Booker is the guy who's going to put up 70 points in a game if you let him. He's not the type of guy who's going to get 30 points and 12 assists. He can, but that's not his style. So it's another thing, like you said, with Luka and Durant. If you put Booker and Durant, it's the same thing where it's like, okay, these guys both want the ball. And if one of them doesn't get it, they're going to be standing around, and neither team can have that. So Durant is it's a struggle with almost any team that's not a loser. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say that. It's a struggle for a team that doesn't have a primary top tier scorer who that is their main role.
Right. And most of the contenders have that guy already. Like most of the top teams have a guy like Durant. Now the big trade is, if you're going to go Heat route, I would toss Butler in the trade and just swap Butler for Durant. You eliminate that problem and you get somebody. I mean, Jimmy Butler's good, but is Kevin Durant good? I don't think so. So if you're going to do a trade, swapping those two might not be a bad option.
Potentially. I think when it comes to Durant and Butler, and if you were to do that situation, I think what it could come down to is Durant is very with the type of locker room personality, he doesn't seem to get along with people very well. And I think with the Heat exchanging Jimmy for Kevin, it would be better because people wouldn't have to worry about the guy trying to physically fight them on the bench. But at the same time, it would be the verbal stuff. It's kind of like you said, the TO effect, where it's like, okay, we have to put up with this guy's antics and his whining and his complaining. The benefit is with the Miami Heat, nobody there, if you get rid of Butler and add in Durant, is on Durant's level. See, when he was at Golden State, you had Curry, who was on his level. I'm not saying Thompson is or Draymond is, but they have names and they were significant. And they were the guys who could tell him, now hold up, KD, this is our team. You're just coming in. We run the show, not you. And he would have a problem with that. When you go to Miami, Tyler Hero's going to say that to him or Bam Adebayo. No, these guys are not going to tell Kevin Durant that. But with Jimmy and in a potential trade for him with Kevin, I don't think the Nets can go through another guy who gets in his own way and gets in his own head. And just, I don't think because think about it. They had to deal with Harden. They had to deal with Durant. They're having to deal with Durant. They had to deal with Kyrie. And then you add Jimmy Butler. I think the Nets would just throw their hands up and why don't we just bring Jason Kidd back? My God.
Don't give them any ideas, okay? We don't need it. We don't need that. The other big name to take a player option, which much to my delight, has probably set up the LA Lakers to either miss the playoffs or has the most expensive bench warmer in all of NBA history. Russell Westbrook is returning to the Lakers on his player option, $47.1 million. And I think LeBron was like, "Oh, you could have been gone." And he's like, "I could have been rid of you," but nope. That's going to be a significant cap hit. Pretty much limit the Lakers and what they can do. And like I said, either he plays and maybe he has a good season next season. But if he doesn't, then you either have the most expensive 6-man / bench warmer in all of NBA history, or you're missing the playoffs again, because we saw what happened last season with Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, Westbrook, which he made clear he does not like. And everybody around the world was like, then play better. My God.
Well, here's the thing about the internet too. If you don't like something, don't tell people that you don't like it, because that's the most surefire way to get people to do it.
Yeah, that's very true. Oh, breaking news. I just got the update. Jazz are trading Rudy Gobert to the Timberwolves.
Oh, okay. Karl Anthony Towns to and Rudy Gobert combo. That's actually not
that sounds pretty good.
That's a pretty significant front court there.
Let's see what the Timberwolves. Yeah, have you ever noticed the Timberwolves are just that team? They can add all the pieces that they want, and it's just like, are we really going to do anything, Minnesota? Are we really going to do anything?
We'll see.
But I mean, hey.
So the Mavericks. Let's get to the Mavericks, because Jalen Brunson, after telling teammates he was probably going to sign with the Mavericks a few weeks ago, has now officially signed a deal to go to the New York Knicks on a 4-year deal in excess of $100 million. And I think I'd have to go back and take a look at the episodes, but I'm 95% sure I said during the first series, the first playoff series against the Jazz, that when Brunson was popping off, I'm pretty sure I said on the podcast, I have to go take a look, that the Mavs need to win this year because there's no way they're keeping Brunson after this.
Yeah, I remember saying that. Yeah,
sure enough, Brunson's gone. Now again, I like him as a sixth man. When Luka's off, he fulfills the same role as Luka in the offense. I loved him as a sixth man, but you can't pay that kind of money to a sixth man. You just can't.
No.
And so I think while it hurts overall, it is a better move for Dallas to not pay him that money and not have him on the roster than it is to pay him that money and either be a sixth man or be a starter, because you significantly limit what else you can do. Now, the other thing that hurts is that the Mavs then signed JaVale McGee to a 3-year deal. Mr. Shaqtin' the Fool himself. Now, here's the deal. By itself, I don't hate picking up JaVale McGee. He's not a overall bad player. Yeah, he has his Shaqtin' the Fool moments, and I'm sure we'll see quite a few next season. But he plays solid defense. He's a good rim protector, which is what the Mavs need. And now, so maybe you're looking at Luka, Tim Hardaway, Kleba, Wood, and JaVale McGee maybe as a starting 5. That's not terrible. You have Wood as kind of like a stretch power forward center. Kleba an outside, Hardaway an outside, and then you have JaVale McGee running as kind of like a Dwight Powell. But potentially, I like Dwight. I think he's athletic, but I think JaVale is going to be a better rim protector than Dwight.
Oh, without a doubt. I think if you want, the thing with Dwight Powell, and with JaVale McGee and that, I could see JaVale McGee taking up the role that TC, Tyson Chandler, for all you diehard Mavs fans out there. We love you, Tyson. I could see him doing that, and I would want him to do that because Tyson Chandler was great in that role. He will have his Shaq and a Fool moments for sure. But I think when it comes time for, with the exchange for Powell, I think honestly, JaVale McGee's a better player, skill wise. Powell's very athletic. That's about it.
But I mean, if you that's the other thing too. If you have Dwight Powell coming in relief for Wood or McGee, that's not bad. If him coming off the bench
No.
short, but the other thing is they might, now that they have McGee, they might try and move Powell in a trade because he's not an insignificant piece in my opinion. But so my point was, in a vacuum, I don't hate picking up JaVale McGee. It's the losing Brunson and picking up McGee doesn't make you feel good, right? It's like, oh man, we lost Brunson, but we got JaVale McGee.
Hey,
okay.
That doesn't have the same effect as, and this is just an example. We lost Jalen Brunson, but if he was still playing, but we picked up Kevin Garnett. It's not the same. It doesn't have the same cachet with Mavs fans, but JaVale McGee, he's got the experience. I think he's won a ring with the Warriors when he played there.
I believe he's won 3. Yeah. He won with the Golden State Warriors in 2017 and 18, and then with the Lakers in 2020.
Yeah. So he's got some rings on his hand. He's played with some of the top stars in the NBA. So I think he's a good person locker room wise and morale wise, and just someone who the Mavs, like, Luka could, just bounce stuff off of. And, he's not, like you said, he's not a complete dunce. He's not even really bad. Is he someone who sticks out like a Hakeem Olajuwon or a Diesel or Shaq? No, but at the same time, he's a serviceable player. And Dallas could take what they could get as far as serviceable big men. My God.
Absolutely. And then basically 12 a.m. Eastern this morning was the Supermax extravaganza. Devin Booker agreed on a 4-year, $224 million Supermax extension with the Suns. John Morant re-signed to a $226 million extension for 4 years with the Grizzlies, to the surprise of no one. Karl Anthony Towns also agreed to a $224 million Supermax with the Timberwolves. And now Nikola Jokic has signed the most expensive contract in NBA history on a 5-year, $264 million Supermax extension with the Nuggets. And then the most surprising of those, in my opinion, was Bradley Beal re-signing for a 5-year Supermax with the Wizards.
Poor Bradley Beal. I love some Brad.
He's a great player. I'm like, dude, you could have gone anywhere. But you stuck with the Wizards? You have people lining up to take you.
No, that's the thing. Damian Lillard said he wanted to play with him, get him and CJ McCollum together. Just things of that. For Bradley Beal and his talent, everybody has said that Bradley Beal is one of the most underrated players in the NBA because not only is he a sharpshooter and he can drain some threes and create open looks and get great shots, but he's a really, really, really good defensive player. And so for him to stick with Washington, I think it's just one of those things where Bradley Beal has been playing for a good amount of time. And I think now he's just kicking the Jets up and is like, look, I'm just trying to make some money at this point because I've tried and it happened. I'm just trying to make money. So, but I mean, whatever helps him, I really want him to get that shining moment because he is such a phenomenal player and he had to hide in John Wall's shadow for all those years. And he finally got a chance to break out. But the Wizards, again, it's like the Timberwolves. The Wizards are one of those teams you root for because you're so tired of seeing them, lose. But at the same time, it's like, it's the Wizards.
Oh, and of course, Zach LaVine agreed to a 5-year max contract to return to the Chicago Bulls. So basically, all the top players staying put. Now, I guess the one wild card is James Harden did decline his player option as well, but most people are expecting him to stay with the 76ers. And then really the only other question besides KD, the only other big name that's still questionable is Zion Williamson, because he is coming off of his rookie contract, meaning he still has I believe the Pelicans still have first dibs on him if they want him. But the question is, since he's only played 85 games in 3 years, what kind of money does he demand? Or are the Pelicans just ready to move on? But it appears that the Pelicans are going to go all in because there's reports coming out that he's saying that they're nearing a max contract to return as well. 5 years, 230 million. And you know what? I'm not going to say he hasn't. Well, I am going to say I don't think he hasn't earned it so far. The talent is certainly there, I think.
Oh, yeah.
He has not yet proved a 5-year, $230 million contract. So this will either go down as a really great move or a really poor move by the Pelicans.
I think what it comes down to for Zion, and I think why the Pelicans are going to take a chance on him with this, is because they are looking at him in the sense of what you just said. The talent is undeniable. It's there. The guy's a star when it comes to what he does on the court, but it's the off the court eating habits that have them or have had people this last season be like, what is wrong with this guy? He's not committed. He's not committed to being an athlete. He wants to eat, eclairs and bonbons all day. What's wrong with him? And I think the Pelicans are going to try to have faith in that. Okay, that was this season. He had a major injury. Maybe he was eating food to cope, whatever. He's going to get back on the horse. He's going to work out. He's going to lose weight. Basically, they are betting on him getting his mind right. And it's easy to make a bad move contract wise based off of talent performance, because you can say, okay, he's earned this money. He hasn't. Are we still going to give him a chance with all this money? Because he's got the talent. We see something there. It's hard to make that choice off of someone's mental faculties. Is he going to get his mind right? Is he going to become disciplined? So
a whole lot.
Will they be the Houston Texans of basketball?
I don't know. It's there's still a whole lot to go, and it's only day 2. There's still a whole lot of time to go. Obviously, the biggest name still is Kevin Durant. He wants out.
Yeah.
So I'm sure some team is going to go pick him up. It's just a question of who. Speaking of big movements, though.
Yeah.
Let's go to college football, where even though we are about 2 months out from the season starting, a big move had sparked controversy all across college football yesterday, as USC and UCLA have officially applied to and theoretically been accepted. It's really all but, confirmed at this point that they'll be moving from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, which means I guess they're no longer, they're in name to Big Ten, but they will not be 10 teams anymore. Nope. And I think you are seeing the beginning of the end of a Power 5. I think this starts to make, because really this came on the heels of OU and Texas going to the SEC.
Yep.
This was in response to that. I think what's going to end up happening is the SEC and the Big Ten are about to become two power. You're going to eventually end up with all these movements in a power, it is going to be 2 super conferences, basically.
Yeah.
You're going to have, and it'll be split basically Southeast and then Northwest type deal. And you're going to have some smaller conferences, but eventually if enough big teams leave to join these bigger conferences, no TV guys are going to go to these smaller conferences, right? If Oregon leaves the Pac-12 and Stanford leads the Pac-12 along with USC and UCLA, what broadcasting rights would want to go to Pac-12 when you could go to the Big Ten? So I think this is starting to become an issue for college sports, especially in football. In basketball, you have some smaller conferences and you have the NCAA March Madness tournament, and everybody gets, it's a lot easier for smaller names to kind of get noticed. But in football,
and also it's more of an expected for the smaller names to really put on the best performances.
Yeah, and in football, the college football playoff contract is coming to an end in a couple of years. or a few years. I think it's 2025 or 2026. So the current format is coming to an end. Who knows what these conferences are going to look like by then?
Yeah.
Like you could very well end up with like it being 20 conference teams in the SEC and the Big Ten, and those have the best teams, and it's just the SEC versus the Big Ten, and then the college football playoff ends up being like the winner of the SEC versus the winner of the Big Ten,
Big Ten,
Big 20 or whatever it is at that point. Like I think this is going to be a problem for smaller conferences as this goes bigger and bigger. All these teams that are left by the wayside in the Pac-12 and the Big 12 and the ACC, it's a trickle effect, right? Because the Big 12 or the Big 10 takes teams from the Pac-12. Yeah, Pac-12 now looks at the ACC and the Big 12, and and they start just kind of stealing teams from other leagues. Well, the more teams do better in those smaller leagues, the more they go up, and eventually they just trickle back up into the Big 10 and the SEC, because that's where the big money TV contracts are. ESPN has the SEC and Fox has the Big 10.
Yeah.
So the issue then becomes, at what point are these small, are the bottom tier teams in the Big 12, the ACC, and the Pac-12, at what point are they just tossed out the window, right? Like at what point is poor North Carolina State or Kansas State or who's bottom of the Pac-12, Oregon State? At what point do these teams just fall out of relevance because they can't play? These conferences can't compete with these bigger super conferences.
You raised a very good point. Something I hadn't thought of. I think what helps some of these some of these teams is that thankfully, and it's not like it's ESPN or CBS or Fox or ABC, but these teams, all of them do have their own networks, in the sense of the Pac-12 as the Pac-12 network, the Big Ten as the Big Ten network. I don't think the Big 12 has that one established.
It was kind of like the Longhorn Network was.
Yeah, the Longhorn Network. Yeah, stuff like that. But that's what I'm saying. There's ways for them to get on television if it's not with these, major television companies. Is that good money as an ESPN? No, obviously not. But at the same time, it's one of those things where, I agree with you in the sense of it'll be a cycle. Teams will, I want more money. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move up here to, the super conferences, because what's gonna happen is these teams are going to, it gives these teams a chance to step up, like Cincinnati, because they're coming to the Big 12. It gives them a chance to step up and, prove their worth, but they'll be proving their worth against low scale competition. So what's going to happen is, like you said, there will be teams like Cincinnati who beat up on Kansas, because who can't beat up on Kansas? Kansas State, whatever. Those teams will be seen as juggernauts, and then they'll go up to face the super conference teams, and then they'll get whooped. And it'll just be, okay, the Pac-12 is soft. The ACC is heavily declining ever since Clemson can't bust a grape. And now the Big 12 is just, so I think one of the things that the Big 12, in my opinion, and this is a little biased because I'm a Longhorns fan, the Big 12, in my opinion, is better off than the ACC and the Pac-12, because yes, Texas is leaving, and yes, Oklahoma is leaving, but Baylor will still be there, and they're not a joke. West Virginia's okay. I'm not saying they have the star power of a Texas Longhorn or an Oklahoma Sooner, but at the same time, they at least have some teams to fall back on, even if it's just one or two.
Yes, but the problem is now, so think about it. OU and Texas are gone, right? Like OU has been one of the top Big 12 teams. Texas for a long time was, kind of fluctuating recently. So who rises to the top now? Probably Baylor and Tech. How long does it take the SEC to go, Baylor, Tech, want some more TV money? we got some more spots in the SEC. Come on, I know you like that money. You got people, and then because honestly, it's in the best interest of the school to do that, right? Because more TV money, more stuff for the school, which probably in that case goes to football anyway because it's in Texas. But either way,
yeah,
it's
pretty
still
much.
It's still more money. So it's still in the best interest of that school to go to the place that's going to give them more money for TV rights, whether or not they win constantly or not.
Yeah.
If you make 400,000 and you win a championship every year in the Big 12, or you make 2 million and you get, a 500 maybe record in the SEC, the school is going to take that 2 million every time.
Oh, without
whether or not the players want it, not up to them.
Nope.
But the school is going to take that 2 million every time. So, I think that's the problem is, you've got teams that are going to, stabilize the Big 12, but they're also then going to be the best. And then they're also going to get an offer from another school or from another conference to leave. And that's the issue now that teams have started moving around is it's generated this kind of, like in movies or video games when there's a chase scene and it's a big boulder, like Indiana Jones and the big boulders chase. That's what it started. This is a boulder that's now starting, and it's going to keep rolling until we end up with the product of 2 super conferences. I firmly believe that in the next 10 to 20 years, you're going to have 2 super conferences, at least in football. It'll be the SEC or whatever they rename themselves to, which is the current SEC plus whoever they pick up. And then you'll have the Big 10 because you can't not do it as a conference, right? Like if the SEC is constantly picking up these teams as the Big 10, you have to be able to pick up more teams or you're going to lose interest or you're going to you're going to lose out on contracts and TV money and interest from a national perspective. So you have to be able to keep up.
Yeah. So what I think will happen is maybe UNT, our little school, Go Mean Green. Maybe we'll be in the Big 12 there, pal. We'll just move up and actually get TV time. I'm shooting at stars here. I know that that's not going to happen.
Yeah, let's see how we do in the American first before we move up to the Big 12.
We still won't be watched on television, so it doesn't make a difference.
So,
but at least we're out of what was the one we were in?
Conference USA.
At least we'll be out of that one. We're moving up slowly, folks. Yeah. We'll be in the Pac-12 before we know it.
So yeah, like I said, I think this is a
it's exciting.
I think this is a big deal. I think this is a big issue. And honestly, the biggest problem I have with it is that there's no good argument against it, right? Because if you have the best teams playing against each other week to week in these conferences, it directly improves the product of football that you see on the field, right?
Yeah.
Like having the top 20 teams in the country playing each other week to week is better overall for the product for college football. There's in terms of what's happening on the field, you can argue the politics of it or whatever. So it's hard to argue against it because of that reason. But I'm also just like, man, I don't know. I think I don't like it. I like having the different conferences. I like having, I think it also develops a little bit of regional pride, right? Like the Pac-12 is mostly along the Pacific. So when you're in the Pac-12, you're like, man, we're the best on this side. And then the Southeastern Conference, and then the Big 10, and the Big 12 with a little bit over here, and then the ACC over here. I like having that regional kind of difference, right? And this is basically going to end up just kind of splitting it in half.
I think, and this happens with, multiple, industries in sports, including the WWE, and in sense of there's always something that starts off, it's fine, it's perfect the way it is. And then stuff gets added to it, like writers to the booking room in professional wrestling, or in this case, college football, where it's like, because I agree with you, I love that regional pride where it's like the Big 12's the best. No, the SEC's the best. All this other stuff. But now it's just going to become the big conference here and the big conference here, and then you have the little ones right here, and then you have, and see, here's another thing. These recruiting is also going to change drastically because you had these teams where it's like, okay, I'll go to TCU. They're not the best in the Big 12, but at least I'll be on TV. You know, now it'll be like, I'm not going over there. Like,
don't forget that
not,
this. I said, don't forget that the new TV money also directly influences that nice NIL money too.
Oh
So
yeah,
go to the bigger conferences for a better NIL deal.
exactly. So exactly. So these schools who are, like used to picking up, not scraps, one that's rude, but also at the same time, they're who are used to picking up pretty good, recruits. Their level of that is about to go way down because you're going to have players be like, well, I want to be on TV. I want to be able to go make money with my NIL deal, but also get on TV so the NFL will see me. I'm going to this super team over here. That's why, even though, you look at places like Tennessee or Kentucky or whatever, these schools, even though they're never going to beat Bama or LSU or whatever, they get on TV. They are in the SEC, which means people will look at you. And I think that's going to carry more cachet for a guy to be like, man, if I'm going to play for an underneath team, I'm going to go play for like a Vanderbilt or a Kentucky or whatever, because at least I'll still be in the major big conference. I'm not going to go to, Louisville in the ACC where nobody's going to watch me because it has the same effect as it did, and I'm not knocking our own school, but when an NFL player says they're from North Texas, does that carry the same when a college player who's, wants to get drafted, when the scouts see, okay, he plays at UNT, does that carry the same cachet as saying well, this guy played at Northwestern, but Northwestern's in the Big Ten and they play Wisconsin and all this other stuff? It doesn't carry that same weight. So it's one of those things where that's going to happen. Instead of it laughing at, oh, look at schools like UNT or SMU or whatever, it's going to trickle over to TCU's, West Virginia's, West Virginia's kind of fine because of the state itself. But you know what I'm saying? It's going to trickle over to these schools that are used to getting even better recruits than we get, and they have to feed off of, Texas or Oklahoma.
Yep. I don't like it, but what can you do about it at this point? Just we're going to have to watch the developments.
We need a t-shirt with that on it.
Yeah.
Ryan Baldwin. I don't like it.
I don't like it, but what can you do? Oh man, story of this past summer so far. Anyway,
speaking of deals, I mentioned WWE.
Tell me about this deal because apparently this was big enough to be on ESPN, and I didn't. I didn't know it was this big of a deal. But tell me about it.
You know what? I will say this: you better be glad you're dealing with me, because if Jose and Russo, if you had to deal with them on this, you oh boy, Ryan would jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, standing right there. But no, so Logan Paul, we all know him. We all know his brother Jake, who have become boxers, and they've actually become boxers. You can't take that away from them. They've become athletes. Everybody was like, fixed fights, and I'm not changing my stance on that. But they do put the work in. They do train.
Oh yeah, anybody that watches that clip of Jake Paul getting knocked out by Floyd Mayweather and being held up, and just being held up so he could recover, bruh.
Yeah,
it was 100% fixed. They're doing it for the money, but they're making a lot of money. So
exactly. Hey, you can't knock. Well, you can knock them. I still do, but so he comes over to the WWE. He partakes in WrestleMania, this past WrestleMania, and puts on a really good match with his tag team partner, The Miz, and really impressed a lot of people. With his character, his charisma, physically and verbally, in the sense of just the way he moves, his facials. He's got good body language in the ring. He has an aura and a presence about him. He carries himself like something. And wrestling fans across the board, old guys like a Jim Cornette, new guys like Jose, me, and Russo, we all noticed that kid's got some talent to be in a wrestling ring, and he gets a reaction. He gets a pop every time he shows up. People care about what he does. And then people were like, the WWE needs to go after him because he had one of the best matches during Mania. And lo and behold, the WWE signs Logan Paul to a 2-year deal. And that's huge because having someone with his star power, I keep using the word cachet a lot, but it works. So I'm going to keep using it. But someone with his star power, his cachet, his ability to draw in people's attention to him, whether you want to see him succeed or you want to see him get beat up, which more people are leaning towards the latter. It's one of those things where he is going to bring in an enormous amount of eyes to the product because people want to see what he's going to do. But also he is becoming, he'll become a bigger star than he would have if he was just boxing. Because you can knock pro wrestling, you can say what you want about the WWE if you're not a fan of it and you don't respect it. But being in the WWE gets eyes on you. That's just a fact. It just does. And so for him and the company, it's a win all the way around. Because Logan Paul seems like he can work a little bit. He can talk. He's got an attitude about him. So that was huge because the WWE, I'm telling you, man, as far as wrestling news goes, they've been at a loss for a long time. Their top two baby faces are injured. Being Cody Rhodes, he got surgery. It's great. A lot of the legends are retired. Cena came back to Raw, which was great, but a lot of the legends are retired and they have to keep bringing them back. Sasha Banks may actually be released. Who knows? One of their top talents is in AEW, Cesaro, Claudio Castagnoli. Vince McMahon being investigated, all this other stuff. They've been taking L's. This is a big dub for the WWE. So it's good for some good news from that company for once. So boy. And we have Money in the Bank tomorrow. So
all right. Well, there you have it. That is the summer Sidecard. Another successful day here in Texas, where it is freaking 100 degrees and I hate it.
But at least we're in California.
No, shockingly, this is not actually California. My cupboard has been blown.
Oh, the Home Alone face.
All right. Well, thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll be back next week with another episode, hopefully with some more NBA free agency updates, as well as other updates from across sports. Until next time, Ryan Baldwin, Shepherd, signing off.